everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and another episode of the Indie Show. Tonight we are talking more Deadly Class. I am super excited to talk about this for the panel, because I always have a great panel for this group, but also because read this last night. I am excited. And we got Haley with me. What's going on, Haley?
Oh, I'm so excited to chat about this, these issues. They're so good.
There's a lot going on here, and I was happy to, I was much more interested in some of the newer characters after this than I was before. So
absolutely, I was like, oh, okay, I'm here for some of these characters, especially because I feel like last episode we were kind of like, this was all right.
Yeah. Speaking of, this was only all right last episode. There's my man Greg.
I was gonna say, if you pull out Gor and not me after that setup, I'm gonna be disappointed in you because man, perfect transition. No, it is. It's funny. I was reading this and I'm like, okay, this is my Deadly Class. this is what I fell in love with. And man, I don't know how we're gonna keep it to an hour and a half, JP. So you gotta be on your game tonight.
We'll go as long as we need to. we'll try to keep it short. But we got my man Gor, who always has great opinions, so we may go long. Who knows?
So what's up, Gor? I'm looking forward to some nice, wholesome teenage rom.
Yeah,
just a rom-com,
It's just like the show. I mean, this is just like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah,
exactly.
Very wholesome.
Same family viewing. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's good seeing you guys.
All right. Well, we had GT Key in here tailgating, as always appreciated. And then this John guy, I don't know who that guy is. I will tell you, John, we are finishing up hardcover number 2 tonight, so we're a little ways ahead of you. So, but we appreciate you hanging out until we give you full spoilers. You know how this show goes.
I just buy the hardcovers and have them. I haven't read them. I still read them digitally or in floppy, so I don't mess them up. So we're on the second hardcover then. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, we are finishing up. Yes, hardcover number 2 is finishing up tonight. Yes. So, all right, yes, on Justin's channel too. Well, as long as it's not on yours, John. All right,
that could be interesting.
So, first thoughts on this volume. We kind of gave a little bit of it here, but Haley, what did you think of this volume overall? These 6 issues, I think.
It was really good. It was everything that I've been waiting to happen. So much of the culmination of things that we kind of knew were coming, and I was really excited. It was like getting the band back together. And I find that I'm really actually interested in a few of the newer characters, like some of the new freshmen. But I will say I forget her name, the Christian girl.
Denzel. Denzel or Z.
Z.
Is not. Still hasn't quite captured my interest. No. So, and also the backstory of Saya, not what I was expecting. We got so much in this volume and these issues. I was really you got a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Greg, what about you? You were not high on the last volume.
I wasn't high on the last volume. I will say that's the beauty of comics, right? And that's the beauty of an art form of. Obviously, Rick Remender knew what he was doing and where he wanted to take things, and he knew he had to set the stage to get us to enjoy this volume more. I think because, like Haley said, I was invested in these characters more now because there was a weight to them a little bit more. But it did. It felt like Deadly Class, what I liked about Deadly Class is back finally. Because it felt departed from that a little bit in the last issue or last volume, I guess. So I was really excited to have that back and just kind of get to, some of the characters I enjoyed a lot, have them back in the fold, and just to see now the chaos that's about to ensue.
Gor, what do you think of Volume 6? For a reminder, that's 27 through 31. So we starts with Saya's backstory, goes through the scene in Mexico that we talked about beforehand. So what do you think of this part of the story?
Well, as people have been watching this, and you guys know, since I was reading it every 30 days or the 4-month hiatus when that would occur, right? I mean, each issue, I spent a lot of time on each issue. I think if I had the volume, because it's such a fascinating story, I just want to read it as fast as I can and go to the next story and then reread it over again. And so obviously the last few issues I enjoyed story. But certainly this one, and like Haley touched upon, the Saya story.
Yeah.
I mean, the tragedy of these kids, just when you think it cannot get any worse.
Oh yeah.
And their parents and their family. No, it does. I mean, even Zenzel's on her storyline, which we'll touch upon today.
Yep.
I mean, really? And you guys, oh well, we're just at the tip of everything. And I'll leave it at that.
We're technically about halfway, but we're yeah.
Oh no. I'm talking about the family stuff.
Yeah.
Get ready.
This is my favorite thing. Like JP, you have to almost coordinate your next indie books all like this. Have like some people who are reading it fresh, and then you just have someone who's read it through, and you're just like,
actually, so that has been it hasn't always worked out, but that has been the goal for all of these indie shows, is to have at least one person on the panel that has read the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like Sandman, my whole panel, except for me, has read the whole series, which is not as good. It's better if it's me and at least one other person that hasn't read it.
Yeah.
And if you have one or two that
because then you have three people telling you, like, "Go, just wait, JP." Like,
yeah, 3 people. Yeah, when it's just me, it's not as much fun. I like having that you guys haven't read it too.
Right.
I will say that, yeah, I love this volume. I really, really enjoy that. I mean, it kicks off super fast for me because I've been a big fan of Saya from the beginning, just as a character from the beginning of this book. And I love this issue. I love the little cover that we get here to 27 with, like, you see her as the little kid with the sword. And I'm glad that we didn't abandon, like, we abandoned for like one issue because we got the Marcus frees Maria issue, but like I'm glad that there wasn't a long abandonment of what was going on with Saya, that we didn't go back to the school, that we went on and jumped back into it to see what's going on, to get that update, and we finally get the backstory. So let's start there. We see her, this volume opens with her mom taking care of her, but we immediately see the flashback to her dad. And we get this, basically, that her dad was Yakuza and his partner and her brother. And we get this whole story arc. What did you guys think of Saya's backstory that we get here in this first issue? Greg, I'm going to let you go first this time.
Man, again, all of these kids' backstories are tragic, and like they wreck you. I found this one really interesting because there was a lot of justification for what in the Yakuza's mindset, her father and her partner, of this is why we do it. But there was also there was a line, right? Like they had a line of, we're not going to add to the corruption of our town by infiltrating drugs and all the other shenanigans that were going on. Like they're like, listen, we'll stick with killing people, keeping them in line kind of thing, and prostitution a little bit, but like sex trafficking and drugs, like we aren't gonna degrade our community that we're living in. And it was such an interesting perspective, because how often do you catch people justifying why they do what they do, and finding a moral line where some go, well, yeah, your moral line though is still not of what the moral line should be. And it was just a really interesting dynamic to see that, as Saya was trying to, figure out of, I want to get my father's approval. I want to be a part of what my father is doing. And it almost felt like her father wanted that too, but because of cultural stances, like he knew he couldn't. And because, he makes the line of like, you are the son I wanted, as Kenji, goes on and dishonors him and leaves and stuff. Like, and I just was like, that dynamic was really interesting, because I think it gives us a lot of insight into the kind of demons that Saya is dealing with and struggling with and having the process as she's making all these other decisions that we're seeing now in the school.
Yeah. I mean, her dad sees himself, and his partner sees themselves as honorable criminals. Like,
right.
They're criminals as much to protect people as they are to, make money. But, but yeah. So, Gor, what do you think of Saya's backstory here that we get, and her dad and the Yakuza and her brother here as we go through this?
obviously, when I saw this, I read this, I thought of Michael Corleone and his father in The Godfather,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because that seems very similar when he's approached to sell drugs, and Corleone says no, right?
Yeah.
And one of the sons is up for it, but he has nothing to do with the death of his father. And like there's the Yakuza here established, they actually are descendants, at least this branch, from
Right.
samurai. So they do have a sense of honor,
Yeah.
right? And this is a line they won't cross. And Saya here, she's so innocent. You see her. She cares for her father.
Yeah.
She wants to be more than what it is, and she sees that they do good, but she's also aware that they are a criminal enterprise because she does tell that to the parents.
Yeah.
But she wants to be a part of this. She really does, and it's rather moving when you see this. And Memender has done this with the parents. We get a brief glimpse of the parents of each of these kids. I don't know about you, but each one is impressed on my mind. Marcus's parents, Maria's parents, and it's also to the credit of Wes Craig how he draws those images. It's like a great scene in a film. They stay with you, and certainly, yes, this was a fascinating issue. I think it might be my favorite of, I guess, the ones in this volume because it's so well done.
Yeah.
And the way he just establishes this. And usually I don't like flashbacks like on TV shows. Like I know when Lost was on, after the first year, the second year, these long flashbacks, I could not stand that at all. They were like really long.
Uh-oh.
Didn't see the point.
John's gonna be
Ooh, these are fighting words for me and John. Be careful,
Okay.
be careful, tread lightly.
But here in the comic, in this one, so far, they work wonderfully. So
Yeah.
this is great.
And he does keep it fairly. It's the whole issue, but it is really a one issue kind of flashback that we get. It's not an extended, 3 or 4 issues. Haley, what did you think of Saya's backstory now that we finally got it?
I was shocked. I think what we've seen really consistently outside of Marcus is that every kid who's come into King's Dominion has had like really messed up relationships with their parents. And with Saya having the reputation that she has in King's Dominion, you almost expect like her parents to be really horrible or for her to have some really like horrible relationship. And then like the kind of tenderness her mom shows her like kind of initially where she's like, I didn't want you there. Like I kind of uses her nickname. And then you see her father be really tender towards her and like tickle her. You're just like, wait, like she had like a lot of love in the beginning of her life and with her relationship. And I'm really close with my dad. So like the moment when like her dad kills himself and like he also is like, I know that you didn't kill like his partner, I was like, this is so sad. And it's still like incredibly tragic. Like it doesn't just because like her parents weren't like abusive or really horrible, there is like such a sadness and tragic aspect to her story arc that you're like, okay, now everyone also like she feels like guilt around this. Like it's like she's brought shame, but in reality, I'm like, it's definitely your brother definitely killed that guy. Like he's I hate her brother. He's so awful.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I really liked that it kept me on my toes. Like I was just anticipating another kind of like, I don't know that I was as excited to read Saya's backstory because I felt like we had gotten so many and I was like, okay, we're going to get some like really messed up stuff. Like the parents going to be awful. Like I felt like we were hitting that kind of formula and then that's not what we got. And I was just really happy that it was unexpected.
Well, it makes it, if you mind, I interject here, is what makes it even sadder in many ways is that when she knows what has happened, she knows that her father's in a terrible position. She knows her brother's a piece of crap. He's got no sense of honor. He's not going to fess up. She takes off her own fingers. And his father sees that about his daughter. Can you imagine the deep love he has for her at that point, that his daughter he knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And she knows what her father's going to do unless she does this. And yet it ends how it ends. It's powerful. Absolutely powerful.
Yeah.
Well, I love his line. It's, she's like, I didn't do it. And he's like, I know, but one of my children did. Like he knows, like exactly. So what do we think of? Obviously, we've been introduced to Kenji before this, but what do we think of the brother?
He's a tool.
He's the worst. I can't wait to watch him get killed.
JP, real quick though, like, and Gord, maybe you can speak to this or not speak to this if you don't want to give stuff away, but you mentioned that she cut off her fingers, and I went back and looked through the book. Like, she looks throughout the book though that she has her fingers in later scenes. In like, if you go back to like volume 5 or something.
That's what I also didn't realize. Like, she cut her fingers off, and I was like, has she always had her fingers cut off?
Well, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, was she wearing gloves? But she wears the fingerless gloves, and they're there. So I was like, that was an interesting detail that I'm like, I'm probably overthinking too much about this, but
now I'm curious because I don't know.
Yeah, now I want to know.
You know, that's true. It's something I didn't pay attention to, Greg. You're absolutely right. I do not know, but something.
Okay.
Well, yes.
Oh, in some of the things, it shows that she has like 3 like.
Did Wes Craig draw in previous issues that way? With 3 fingers?
Wait, let me see. No, like now I need to know.
She cut him off of right hand.
right. And then
in gloves a lot. I know that.
But in volume 5, where she's falling, there visibly are
Little
maybe
stubs.
not. What?
They're little finger stubs.
Are
They could have been replaced though.
That's what I was
Because
just
within a certain period of time, you can replace them.
Yeah, but she runs away. Like when this is all said and done, like she grabs the sword and runs away. So
yeah, when you see her with Willie, it looks like she still has her fingers because she puts her hand up to his face.
Right. And that's what I was just curious of like, I'm like, did I miss something in that, or is that?
Oh,
no, you're right.
Looks like there's one.
Like a couple of panels.
I'm like counting her. There looks like her pinky is chopped.
Yeah.
Like in
some of the panels, it looks like they're kind of
panels.
stubby, and some of the panels, it just looks like they're regular fingers. So I think there's some inconsistency there.
So Rick Remender and Wes Craig would just like stop overthinking it, Greg. Stop backtracking, because it feels like that might have been a decision that they made later in, and I'm curious to see then if moving forward with Saya that you do see the stubs where it wasn't. I'd be curious. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely be curious.
It looks like they cut off like maybe 1, and then the decision like is that she cut off 2 in this thing. Because like when you look back some of the paneling, it always looks like her pinky is like cut on like from the drawings, but it looks like these are all here. But in this one, she cuts off these 2 fingers.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Very observation. I missed that entirely.
So, anything else you guys want to discuss about this Saya backstory chapter? Only thing else that jumped out at me was that obviously her mother also knows the truth and also cares for her at this point, but and didn't want any of this for her because clearly, and so because doesn't blame her for what happened with her dad and stuff. So, but is there anything else in this issue that you guys want to bring out?
Which is the fact now we know where she got her tattoos. Right?
Oh, yeah, because she was trying to prove herself that she could be a part of that world.
Cover.
Yeah.
I want that cover so bad. It just looks so cool. Her getting tattooed.
Oh, that was on the back in the back pages. Oh, who is that? Gore, you have it right there. Who?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who did that
and
cover?
Of course, listen to
based on the panel.
Who did that? Do you see who did the artwork on that cover?
See what it says inside.
Let me see if I can get to it on my digital reader here.
It says cover B by somebody named Toby Cypress. Cover C by Vanessa Del Rey.
Yeah, it's a Vanessa Del Rey one.
Vanessa Del Rey.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
because she's a tough cookie. I think she humiliates her brother.
Oh yeah,
humiliates him. And she's a child, and worse, she's a girl.
Yeah,
in a very testosterone macho environment.
Yeah, and her brother's a fool. But I mean, her brother's a fool, and she shows it. And he's not, he's vicious.
But this is very dangerous, as we've already discovered.
Yeah,
because this stuff stays with you.
Vanessa Del Rey did artwork on Haha, which is that's why I was like, I knew the name sounded familiar.
Okay. Anything else before we jump to the next issue? We're only 20. It only took 20 minutes. So.
I was like, I feel like we're rushing this issue, which we've never done, but there's so much we got to get to of goodness.
I know.
So 28 starts with back with Marcus and Maria sitting on the beach, but it's actually Marcus and Willie. Marcus having a conversation with his dead friend, and Maria coming up and like calling him on, talking to ghosts. Haley, what did you think about the scene with Marcus and Willie, and eventually Maria is like Marcus is remembering his friend, and even she has to call him on like, don't let the good times go away just because don't live in the past kind of thing. What did you think of this whole thing, Haley?
Yeah, I mean, for 2 seconds, I was like, "Wait, no, Willie definitely died, right?" And I was like, "Oh no!" And then you obviously see the empty chair, and you're like, "Okay." And like that struck me as like really, really sad, and also like I love that like he still has like an affinity for Willie, like that their friendship did really mean a lot to him. And you're brought back to almost that bus moment where they're talking about music together in the earlier issues, which I love that whole those panels. And then I love Maria. Like she just brings a kind of energy where she's like snap out of it. Like I appreciate that after everything she's been through, she is trying to be really grounded in happiness. And I feel like we're probably going to keep coming back to like Marcus's like kind of depression and, kind of melancholy that just like is often resurfacing, especially in moments where he is feeling a kind of happiness. Like he can't hold on to it. It's like this kind of like sand through your fingers. And also Maria giving him the new notebook. Like I feel like she really sees him, and I really love that. I love that for him. I love their like little relationship, and very curious to see how it develops now that like they're back together. But I was like, oh, this is so nice. This will last for only so long.
Well, I mean, Marcus even says it. He's like, you get used to it. It stops being so neat. Nothing good stays good. And she's like not having any of it. And so like stop it. Things are good at the moment. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Greg, what about you? What did you think of the scene with him and Willie and then him and Maria?
Well, I loved it. But it was indicative of who Marcus is, right? Because Marcus has never allowed himself to enjoy himself, right? We had that moment with him and Saya at the lake, which was a special place for him multiple times ago, and that was where he kind of was just like, I can't be happy. Like I can't stay in this moment of everything's good because it isn't. And to have that kind of be brought back up here again, where he's like, everyone thinks him and Maria are dead. Like, it's like, just enjoy it. And he can't, I don't think he can look past that because he has this pessimistic mindset because of everything that's happened. And I think if he allows himself to feel happy and feel joy that he's like, it's going to get taken away from me at some point. And he's not necessarily wrong in this volume that we read anyway. Right. So it was really true to his character. And I love the idea of him like having the conversation with, Willie of like, this is my plan. What did you think of it? Like, we have to follow through with what this is. Like, he wasn't content being happy and being like, just leave the school. Everyone thinks you're dead. He was processing, how do we get Masterland? How do we go and do this and this? And Willie's just like, dude, just let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. Willie's trying to be the good angel on his shoulder. He's got Willie now, which is kind of funny, but given the way things potentially were going to end between them, but for sure. So Gor, what did you think of the scene here on the beach?
Well, I think we've already seen before where Marcus has either hallucinations, right? Either when he's on drugs and he has a conversation with somebody, and or not. He's got these imaginary conversations. But this is a very hopeful issue because no matter how pessimistic, like you guys have touched upon, or how stupid Marcus can be, Maria just looks at him and says, there's really nothing you can say to push me away from you. I already know how you are. And she's there for him. She's so grounded, like you guys have pointed out. And I really enjoyed that. I mean, that scene there on the beach is just so well done with her. And just, she does love the guy, and he does love her. He's just doom and gloom on everything, but she's not gonna have it, not at all.
Yeah.
And so this part with them is very hopeful,
Right.
as of now. But like Haley says, will it last, right?
Yeah.
But as of right now, the answer is yes, right? The answer is
In
yes.
that moment, it is. And so
Yeah.
enjoy it. Yeah.
And it's done. There's nothing there to make us think otherwise, right?
And that's the thing. He's constantly seems to need that she's bringing him is that she's like, who cares what's gonna enjoy the now. We got the now, and Marcus struggles with the now a lot.
He does
For sure. All right. With that, we then jump back into the school, and we get more of a little bit of short scene of Quan, and we realize that Quan really is in Kenji's pocket. But then we also get a little bit of fallout. The fallout of Saya's disappearance. We get Master Lin questioning them and them questioning each other. We get the student, the power trip going on within the student council. What stands out to you guys amongst this stuff? And this time I'll let Greg go first as we kind of move through some of this stuff.
Oh, I mean, I do find that these are the moments I do enjoy the most of the book, of where I am in the school, getting to see all the other characters and what they're going through. You have this power struggle, and I did a couple double takes because what's the nerdy bad guy's name?
Shabnam?
Sabnum. And his girl that they always call like the troll, the goblin, like did not look like she typically looked and they don't address it until later on in the volume.
Yeah.
And so I had to like go back and like wait, this is who I think this is, right? And so like that I did find myself looking at this book a couple times of going, wait, hold on, who is this? I think I did find a little bit of that pacing of that writing of like not being able to like just jump cutting to it, like, and expecting you to remember. And I'm like, I'm reading this like in 6 issues in the span of a month, where I'm like, people that are reading this month, month by month, I'm like, that's asking a lot without giving some little nods.
Yeah.
And so that was a little, I've noticed that a little bit in Remender's writing. And, maybe other people don't, but like that are smarter than me when it comes to reading. But I love the power dynamic, because I think we're starting to see where Victor is starting to go like, I don't need you. Like there's this kind of like, there's this struggle of where does I do enough for you matter, right? Like where it's like, okay, you've served your purpose. Now I'm going to start to make a name on my own that I can expand off of that. And that's where we're seeing Victor start to kind of, I think, branch out here.
Well, yeah. And you see Victor is very much, and everyone's very much unhappy with the fact that the troll has now taken complete control. That Shabnam just is doing whatever she said.
Right.
like that she seems to be the one ruling the roost now. And I will admit, I got confused again because I'd forgotten about Petra being the preppy blonde girl for a minute. I was like, what the heck is this?
That messed me up later, though, when she's not the preppy blonde girl.
When she goes back, yeah.
And I was like, wait a second. I thought it was Saya at first. I'm like, this is weird. And I'm like, no, I was like, okay.
Yeah. So, Gor, what did you think of this whole, as we get back into the school dynamic, as they're dealing with fallout from Saya Victor supposedly killing Saya, and all of this that's going on within the school.
But at this point, it's the rehabilitation of Petra, in a sense, at least for the reader, because she's no longer part of the inner circle here.
Yeah,
and we already know what she did, right?
Yeah.
And so now we're entering, basically, it's going to be her story, as we know from this issue and the next few here. And so she went back. She went back earlier when they were at the party. I mean, at the school party, she went back to her nice suburban-looking type of look, right?
Yeah.
But then, as we know, eventually she goes back to her goth look. But basically, I saw that as the rehabilitation, at least for the reader. Now, if it's going to work or not, we don't know. And if it's going to work for her friends, we'll see.
Yeah, when they find out what happened to Billy, that's right. We'll see.
That's right. And then, of course, then we get to this part here, which is the next part. But yes, for me, it was I focused on Saya at this point.
Yeah. So yeah,
those are Petra.
we get two big things at the end of this chapter. Is we get that Quan finds that Saya not just kept Marcus's journal, but she started writing in it herself.
Yeah.
And Gor, I think it's your turn to go first. What did you think about that reveal? That not just did she keep it, but she wrote in it herself, and we get the details of how Marcus survived from it. But for me, the biggest thing wasn't that obviously it helped Quan story-wise realize that Marcus was alive, but the fact that she started writing in it herself. What did you think?
Yeah, that did surprise me that she would do that, and also what she did write in that journal.
Yeah.
And she's consistently helping him out. I mean, she obviously saves him, and by basically pretending to kill him. So she is continuing to do the right thing here. I mean, Saya is just a wonderful character here, and how Remender and Craig present her here. Now, I will say something here at this point. I'm not giving anything away because when this issue came out, there was in the letters pages, people were talking about Marcus, right? Oh, he's alive.
Yeah.
Right? They're addressing that issue. He's alive. And in the letters pages, Remender said this. This is what got me. That's why what is he doing here? He said he had written 2 outlines. And in one of them, he does kill Marcus.
Yeah.
That's right. So in one outline that he wrote, and that's what he intended to do, he discussed it with Wes Craig. He discussed it with the editor. At that point, Deadly Class, the show was being written. He discussed it with them. And that got him to change his mind to keep him alive.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. This already was going to go in an entirely different direction. Completely. And already the thing about this is that, remember when Saya stabbed him, right?
Yeah.
And it's my understanding that this volume is called This Is Not the End.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They had that conversation, I think, in one of the issues, maybe issue 14 or something, where Saya and him are in the diner, and he talks that song by Agent Orange. I want This Is Not the End played at my funeral.
Yeah.
He, again, Remender is intentionally doing this.
Yeah.
And this is not the end. Now we get here, right? So now there's been speculation when this came out is what did she whisper to him? And some of the speculation is what she whispered to him was, this is not the end.
Yeah.
When she stabbed him.
That's awesome.
So the unreliable writer, narrator here, where we are, where they think some people are dead, some people are not dead. We learn that they're alive. Yeah. So at this point for me, I'm like going, oh, can go anywhere, literally anywhere at this point, what he's going to do with this. And that's exactly what happens, as you will see in the next volumes to come.
Yeah.
So
Haley, what did you think of the reveal of how Saya kept Marcus alive and the fact that she kept his diary and was writing in it? And
I loved it. I mean, I was wondering like what happened, and the fact that like just like kind of how elaborate it was. I was like, oh, I'm so here for this. Like, you know, like kind of stopping his heart and then like kind of bringing him back. And also that she had the same kind of plan for Willie, which like made it so much more sad that he was killed because like she was trying to also save him. The fact that she was writing in his journal. I mean, I feel like there's these like really beautiful, like strong, like emotional bonds between Marcus and her. Like when she stops him at the ledge, I feel like, and he hands her the journal. So I feel like there's like this kind of emotional tie, and like Marcus like kind of I think fully sees her in this way where like she is like really broken or like has like these feelings, and a lot of people see Saya as this kind of like badass assassin. But I feel like Marcus really sees her for like who she is in a lot of ways, and she has these like really tender moments. So it's not surprising that she would kind of like allow herself in his journal to like write. Like that made sense to me. But I thought at the same time I was like, but then Quan picked it up and I was like, God damn it.
But again, it goes back to that intimacy, right, between them.
Yeah.
When she tells him when he shows her the journal, and then Maria shows up. what are you guys talking about? You see, that intimacy is already established there.
Yeah.
She goes one step beyond. Now her hand is on the same journal that his hand held, that journal, his pen. And almost like they're making love in a way without making love. And these panels here, when she says something, Saya, she goes, yeah, me too. You know, it's
and
like that Empire Strikes Back moment, you know, I love you. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's something to also be said, like the parallel of like Maria giving him a new journal and him saying like those things are hard to break in, and then like Saya kind of finishing his old journal, like this kind of like between like their relationship, like I don't know. I feel like there's something more there that I haven't quite put together, but it feels important.
Greg, what about you? What do you think of this?
Man, this is Archie comics on crack cocaine. I've never been more, is it Betty or is it Veronica than right now? Because, you know, as much as you're like, oh, Marcus and Maria, he saved her, they're there. Like, yes, they're happy. Like, you know, Saya writing in Marcus's journal, to me, that's that we talked about that intimacy, right? Like that's her, like, there's this connection that like, I don't know. I'm kind of still on Marcus and Saya team. Like, and so I'm like, even though like I'm happy that Marcus and, you know, are there on the beach and they're happy, like when that moment I'm like, okay, she did this to save Willie, she did this to save Marcus, like there's hope, and now she's writing in it, like I'm the hopeless romantic here, and I'm like, let's go. Like, you know, I also don't dislike Marcus and Maria. Like, so it's like, this is well done writing, because I'm not upset either way right now. But I do think I lean team Marcus and Saya.
Yeah, but you know what both of them are doing, what Craig and Remender are doing to us. They're doing exactly this to us.
Yes, they are.
They're doing it brilliantly.
Yeah.
Because it stays with you. It's so
but Maria deserves love.
Well, so, and here's the thing that I see here is Saya is once again trying to make a sacrifice for somebody she cares about. Because she tells him, she tells him where Maria is, and she's like, go get her. Forget this place. Be happy. Go to that beach. And she's letting him go. She's like, go. Don't be a part of this anymore. Like, I can't get out of this world I'm in yet. Don't be a part of it anymore. And I do think at this point, I think it's Marcus and Maria, but like, you want Saya to be happy. I don't know how that's going to happen, but that, you know, you want, because she seems to be the one, more so even than Marcus and Maria, like truly a good person who's stuck in all of this, like who's trying to do the right things. And so it's just very interesting. And then of course it ends with her mother trying to do the right thing in this chapter, trying to get her out of there, away from her brother, and doesn't work. And he then kills their mom, just like he basically arranged for the death of their father. Yeah. So
he does kill the mom?
I mean, I assume that's,
I feel like that's, I was just like, was that like confirmed, or did I miss? Because I was like, it felt a little ambiguous.
The crack makes me think the neck broke or something. Like,
okay. Yeah,
you will see. Yeah, you will see.
But you never know. I mean, Marcus had a freaking katana blade shoved through his entire body, and he's cool. He's walking around living life right now. So
he's in Mexico hanging out.
Right? Like, what do you
do? All right. So next issue, we see we're back in the school, and we start out there getting ready for some sort of rally or something.
Homecoming, baby.
But yeah, homecoming. But we continue to see power dynamics, and we see Quan basically being everybody's bitch, for lack of a better term, because he's like, Kenji's got him on the hook, and then we see Victor like, oh, you now belong to Victor. Like, so Quan is like. So what did we think of the reveal here that now Quan is not just like Kenji's puppet, but he's now Victor's puppet as well? Greg, I can see you're like,
I hate Quan. Like, man, you think you killed the top dog at the school, and you're gonna let Victor just run you around like and control you because he shoved your head. Like, I get it. Victor's intimidating. He's opposing, but like, if I'm Quan, I'm like, I killed her. Like, no, like you don't have power over me. But he just crumbled instantly. And I'm like, you're a weasel, dude. Like, that's why you did what you did anyway, because Kenji wanted you to kill his sister, and that's why you're going to continue to do what you do throughout this volume.
Yeah.
And props to making me dislike his character more. I'm like, at least if you're going to do it, have a backbone. Like, bro, like you think you took out the top dog and you're letting other people still just muscle you around. And I'm like,
yeah.
And I guess we haven't gotten a lot of Quan's backstory, so maybe we'll see more of that, of why he's a pushover, even though like he brings something to the table. But yeah, it frustrated me. I was annoyed. It's like, I don't like you, Quan. Like, if you're gonna do it well.
Gor or Haley, have anything to add to Quan and Victor and Quan and Kenji?
Not really.
Right. Well, yeah, it's a short. There's just a lot of short snippets in this issue. And what about Zinzil and Brandy in the locker room, and basically Brandy getting her bluff called, but she's not really like as bad as she thinks she is. And my cat is mad because I won't let her out of the door just yet, but I will in a second. Haley, what did you think of the scene between Zinzil and Brandy in the locker room?
You know, Brandy's just really annoying. She just really is. Though, to be quite honest, I feel like the first half of this issue, I just like haven't been as interested in like the power dynamics at the school. Just because they're like the student, like they've been holding power, and I liked it so much better when they were like trying to fight for the power. Like, I don't know, it feels a little like I'm like, okay, I need like someone to disrupt this like pretty quickly, because I'm losing interest in like Victor and Shabnam and like Brandy just kind of like chilling and doing whatever they want. Like I needed something to kind of like cut this issue, because I was reading it and I was like, it's interesting and Brandy's annoying and I can't wait for something bad to happen to her. But otherwise I don't know. It just like, it wasn't, I was here for all the other components in the issue. Like once we get back to Petra looking all goth.
Yeah. So most of the issue is Helmet and Petra. And that was a lot of, like, Petra's basically at the end of her rope to start, when we see her next, she's about to, like, kill herself because of what she did to Billy. That didn't even amount to anything. She didn't even gain anything from it. And, like, we'll start with Gor. What did you think of the Helmet and Petra and him, like, basically pulling her back from the edge?
See, I like the banter between them, because they're discussing, for example, the issues of music, right? And what makes something popular, not popular. And earlier you had Brandy and Zenzel discussing basically history, identity, and those issues. And what I like about it when Remender does this, he does this one here and the other issues, is when I was back in the 80s and 90s, these were the exact conversations we would have, or arguments we would have, exactly like this. And again, Remender and I were from the same generation, but he captures that moment exactly. And it got pretty personal. It can get pretty ugly at times. And in the letters pages here, there are some people who they tell Remender, I don't know what to say, but I like Brandy.
Yeah.
I'm attracted to Brandy. I know she's a Nazi. One person says that, but there's something about Brandy that I like. And they're hoping that she'll find some kind of redemption. Some people have said that in the letters pages.
Not me.
No.
Through Brandy.
And Remender does have an answer for that, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And he does have an answer, but I think you might know what the answer is.
Yeah.
But yeah, this relationship between also, I like Helmut's character being from East Germany and basically being the Stasi. And a long time ago, I was good friends with someone from East Germany who grew up before the Berlin Wall fell. And now it was a woman, it was not a man, and she was very different than him, but very similar stories that he has, she would tell me about. And I I have to say, I was surprised by this relationship developing between them. I don't know why. Maybe you guys were not surprised, but I know I was surprised by them. And again, they're very good with romance, Remender and Craig. They're just really good at getting the romance here. But again, they're getting the reader really emotionally attached to these people in some way. And let's see if he's going to pull the rug from under us. We will see.
Oh, yeah, of course. I would agree with you. I thought the conversation was picture perfect. Just the way they were talking about music and the way they were going back and forth and the banter and, the way he's just like, and the whole thing where they launched the burrito and I thought the whole thing was just great. And Helmet's whole thing, I will become a burrito. He becomes a superhero, like his little story. I just love the whole thing, the whole dynamic with the conversation. It does sound something very much from like, I was a little younger, but not that much. And like from the, early 90s conversation, the kinds of things we argued and debated. And and I just thought it was a great scene. Haley, what did you think of Petra and Helmet? I will say, Helmet has quickly become my favorite of the new characters.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow, really? That's interesting.
Of the new characters.
Of the new characters, I would totally agree.
I like him too. I like him. Yeah.
He's just like, I feel like he is like constantly trying to keep like the band together and like everyone, like, I don't know, he just feels, and watch this like come to bite me in the butt, like the most genuine in some ways out of all of the like new characters. And so I'm like attracted to that. But I love the like kind of tenderness of like him stopping Petra and like, let's do something normal. And it just like really reminds you of the that they're teenagers. That they're teenagers and they like need to have fun sometimes, and you just like don't get that normalcy. And so I love that he was trying to kind of create that space for her. And yeah, I love romance. So that was like, give me more. So I was really excited about it. And I also feel like, I don't know, I really like Petra, even though she killed Billy. Like I was really like, ugh. But
well, you see, hey, you know what? Again, what Remender's doing. We like Petra. Then we see what Petra does. We don't like Petra.
Yes,
now we like
absolutely.
Petra again. I mean, what? Yes, do you see where he puts us in a situation like this?
Yeah.
Which I love it. Take me on the roller coaster.
No, you can't do this to us. What are you doing to us? And one more thing about the past. I forgot about this. In the previous issue, when Shabnan's talking about reading the X-Men comics.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
You were showing something. Sorry.
I was reading the X-Men at the time, and I dropped it. Paul Smith had left. Romita had come on board. I like Madeline Pryor. Then they do this whole Inferno nonsense. This is the only thing I will agree with Shabnam throughout this freaking series. I'm with him on this sort of nonsense. This supernatural Inferno, it drove me nuts. I stopped reading the comic. I dropped it, and I was already leaving comics anyway at the time anyway. But what he says here, it's absolutely, it's true. The Goblin Queen, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. Anyway, when I saw that, when I read that, it brought all that back to me. So,
what I love from that scene, one of the things I love about that scene that we skipped over, just because you brought it up, Gor, is that, and I'm blanking on his name now. What, Steven?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, Steven tries to do, because I remember being a kid of that age and being into comics, and like that was just like the worst thing you could do if you wanted to be like people, like you were mocked, and it was just like you couldn't get more uncool than being into comics. And I love how he's like, dude, just you need to like change the way you talk about it so you can complain about the comics, but people don't know what you're complaining about. And like he's trying to give him like, which was things that we did, like to like hide the fact that what we really loved and liked, which is why I love doing this now. It's like we can just talk about it. But so I love that whole little dynamic with him, because Steven, you could tell, was actually enjoyed comics also, but he's like, hey, don't talk about it. Like people aren't going to respect you. And it's like, yeah, I just thought that whole sequence was really well done there too.
Yeah, at the university, I mean, no one read comics at my dorm. And I had a poster of Elektra Assassin by Bill Sienkiewicz. And people would pass by and they would go, is that Bacon? No. Is that Klimt? No. It's Sienkiewicz. Who's that? He's a comic book artist. And I go, oh. And they would walk away.
Yeah. So, Greg, I didn't let you. We changed subjects a little bit, but Petra and Helmet. What did you think?
I hated it at first.
What?
Because I thought it was Saya and Helmet. And I thought it was a flashback.
Oh,
I
Okay.
didn't realize they switched her
Okay.
back to her god self. No, I'm being honest. Like that was like, I'm like, wait.
You're like closing this, actually.
No, why are we doing no? This is a horrible decision, remember? What do you and I'm like, wait, is because again, they don't say Petra until like 2 more issues later, and I forgot that because like you literally changed. That's what I was talking about earlier. You change your appearance, and then they went back to changing it without like segue. Unless I missed the segue,
No,
and I was just like, I was so separated from that I forgot who it was. That I had to go back and relook at previous issues and be like, oh, it's Petra who killed Billy. I'm like, okay, I'm back into this now. Like,
yeah.
I love that dynamic. I think this is where Remender does a really good job of creating characters, that kind of roller coaster ride that we've talked about. But he does a fantastic job of doing a social commentary on things, like for 3 pages, right? Like this whole dynamic that he's fitting this argument into, like this goth music that you love and punk rock, like MTV's gonna ruin it. And it just felt like you know, if Petra at some point in later issues doesn't go, well, I like this band before they got big, I'm like, that's a missed opportunity, because I feel like that's a token conversation, right? Like, oh, I love so and so.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Before they were big. And I love that social commentary on life, because we all had those conversations.
Yes, we did.
You were
And-
you couldn't like the mainstream music. You had to
Yeah.
like some band nobody else had ever heard of. Like,
Right. And I think he does such a good job at that, where I'm like, I don't want to say that's the parts I love about Remender's writing the most, but I appreciate it because it gives us a breather from the intense stuff that we're talking about and go, oh man, you're right, man. I remember going through those moments. I remember having this conversation. I remember having this dialogue about, you know, what we think things are, and, you know, what is mainstream and what's punk and what's pop, and like, and we still have those conversations, and we still have that conversations of, this isn't my this isn't my Hulk, or this isn't my Batman. You know, I like it when it was this, and it's this, you know, and now that, you know, it's cool that, or maybe not cool, that we can be on a YouTube stream talking about comics where, you know, Shabnan is like hiding it, like, you know, like, oh God, you know, I love that commentary that he throws into it. He did that with the music shop, I think in like the first volume or second volume. And I appreciate that a lot about what Rick does here, of setting that stage, of bringing it back to, and it's set to the era that he's talking about, right? And so as we're creeping into a little bit out of Gor's era and into my era here now, I'm excited for that, of being like, oh yeah, this is me and what that was. So I did really like seeing, you know, Petra and Helmet a little bit. Again, I'm liking his character more and more. And I think it's the next issue, but then Remender does what Remender does, and it ticks me off.
And one thing regarding this as well, regarding this comic, if it took place in the late 80s, right? This is why, you know, having the 3 of you here, and all the 3 of you here, you can go easily from an X-Men comic to East to West, to Deadly Class,
Right.
To Monsters, to whatever you guys like, right? That was not the case in the 80s. There was the mainstream people and the indie people. It was very little interaction between the two. And there was this sort of like Protestant Catholic situation between the two. Because I remember I read The Independents as a kid, and I got a lot of grief from the mainstream people. They just did not. One, there's no capes in it. There's sex in it. There's nudity in it. There's no fighting in some of the stories. And so it's wonderful how the medium has changed. And I'm not sure if Remender was doing this intentionally here, indirectly here, commenting on that, how the way things were in the 80s and in the early 90s. And then finally things began to change by the late 90s, where people, it's a comic book, doesn't matter, you know, and you can read whatever you like and it's not a problem like it is now. Right now, you know, you guys, you know, no one gets any grief about whatever you read, except of course from me and Saga, but that's all that matters.
So
with Igor.
So the whole next issue is road trip. Is basically the road trip to Mexico, and it's them driving. It's Petra, Helmet, Quan, Denzel, and I cannot remember how to say the other guy's name.
Just call him T.
Yeah, T. There you go.
T.
And so. And this is where I was confused because I was like, did I miss something? Because they keep referencing some event like that happened and why they're leaving, which we don't see it, which we actually get in the next issue. But like, I was confused here.
Yeah, it's Greg's point from earlier.
Yeah, I was confused here. I'm like, wait, what happened? What are they talking about? What happened? And so, what do we think of the group dynamic? Is they mainly just argue with each other the whole way down the road. And Greg, okay, I'm gonna let Greg go first.
Listen, I love it from the aspect of the dialogue, right? Like the social commentary on life of of the perspective that you have, and Helmet gets upset. He's like, when you lump everyone into one category, you lose credibility as someone when you can't individualize someone. And he's like, oh well, I love that social commentary on things. I love that dialogue because I think there's truth in both of those perspectives.
Yeah.
But gosh darn it, Rick Remender, get off your poop case, bro. Like he brings it back again with the bathroom stuff in the farting and the like, in McDonald's. I was like, okay. I was like, he's giving a little nod to that. And then he does the stupid thing in the slide of sliding down the poop. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, you're right. This is like
Rick Remender, why do you have a fascination
this is something he used
and fart jokes and like you are like this brilliant writer that then like sometimes you're like, I gotta tap into a middle school boy who's like poop. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, it takes me off. I want to have us all on a show and have Rick, like the whole creative team of Deadly Class. And then at one point, like, I want to praise Rick and then just be like, bro, what is your fascination? And I want him to give me like this really in-depth, like, well, this is why I did this. And
he's like, just find it funny.
Man, I know the next volume. I'm like, all right, we're going to get some poop-related stuff and I'm going to go on a rant again.
I know you're right, Greg. You're absolutely right about the poop. I mean, you're right. I mean, I know John Irving, the guy who wrote The War According to Gar. I've never read any of his novels, but I had some friends of mine who liked his books a lot. And he said he would always have a bear in one of his stories, either a teddy bear or a bear. And they were like, why is there a bear in every one of your novels? But but here, this is more bizarre. The whole excrement stuff. I don't understand. He's right.
It's so weird. Like I was chalking up the McDonald's scene to like, okay, he's throwing that in there. And then he's just like, nah, let's have him go down this an enclosed curly slide, and Quan runs in the poop down the slide, and he's like, yeah, go down the slide head first.
Yeah. Okay. Haley, was there anything else in this?
I am so glad that we have these shows so that Greg can really remind me of like how much poop scenes there are. Cause like, I don't know, I read it and I kind of just like, I don't know, I read it and then I move on. Like, it doesn't really like hit me that like, I'm just kind of like, that's ridiculous and gross. And then I'm just kind of on to the next. And then the Greg is like, more poop. And I'm like, and then it hits me how many scenes we've had. And I'm like,
so many.
Why do we have so many scenes? But
that's been a ton.
Yeah, I am like interested. I love like all of the social commentary in the beginning. And I think I was just like eager at this point though, because like they're heading down to Mexico. I'm like, what's gonna happen? So like I loved like, and it was really reminiscent of the Vegas issue as well. So whenever they go on a road trip, you just know things are about to get crazy.
Shit's gonna happen.
Yeah.
The road trip is almost like a borderline issue to set you up for just some buck wildness.
Exactly. You're like,
you didn't even go in I gave you the pun, Greg, and you didn't even like shake your head when I.
No, I ignored it.
I'm refuses.
I am just poop. I'm of all the poop jokes.
Gore, what did you think of the road trip here?
I think it's like the Hunter S. Thompson thing. That movie that was made with Johnny Depp based on a book by Thompson about Vegas.
Yeah,
Fear and Loathing.
Fear and
And
Loathing.
so, yeah, these the road trips are they're leading up to something, and for me it was just the interaction of the characters again, the banter between them, which I liked quite a bit, but for me I didn't have an issue so much because you already know when Denzel is going to write that letter and someone comments on something, and you're going, why are they making that comment about her? And but we already know, well, it's not addressed here, but it'll come down later.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Yeah.
I really like that a lot. I know that's very common, for example, in some independent movies or in novels or in European films. That's very common when they do stuff like that. It's very different than the American movies, which are more linear. And so for me, this sort of thing is great. And because what happens when we finally get to that part, we're like, oh, it makes you go back and reread these parts again.
Yeah.
And
when Petra comments on the letter, it's like, what? Why is that?
Why are they acting so weird?
Yeah.
Why I like this a lot. I like this. I like it when the people do that. Yeah.
No,
I think you're right. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm done.
Yeah, I thought the conversation during the road trip was great. Everything Greg said about, the commentary, and none of them are really wrong in the positions they're taking. And it's just it's a fun thing. And then, it goes off the rails with poop and everything else. But
I think it's also, even if you disagree with the characters, they sound real.
Yeah.
And again,
they're reasonable. Even if they're wrong or you disagree with them, they're reasonable in where they're coming from.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not like and I shouldn't say reasonable in the fact that T is maybe a little unreasonable because he's a little over the top and aggressive, but you can understand why he's the way he is.
Yeah, you do.
It's not for who the character is. It's not in a reasonable position for him to take and to behave. And so it comes off as real and authentic in a way that the way they're having that conversation. But the issue ends with it takes them 30 seconds once they get to the town to find Marcus and Maria.
Yes.
And we see Quan realizes he sees Marcus and he thinks he's going to do something only for Maria and Petra to find each other. And it's like, Marcus, it's Petra. Can you believe it? And he's like, no.
He's like, screw this.
He's like, what the frick? So... yeah, what did you think that they found him that quickly, that easily? Other than just plot. What? Gore, what did you think about the fact that they found him?
Well, Quan knew where they were because of the diary. He knew
what town they were in, but the fact that they're just like, oh, look, we got here in 30 seconds. There they are.
Yeah, right. You suspend your imagination at this point. Let's just jump to this. And also, I liked how he reacted. And that's when by Marcus's reaction, instead of saying, hey, it's great to see you, it's, oh. And then it made me think of how we started the show. Maria and him on the beach. Everything is nice.
Yeah.
It's an oasis in a desert.
Yeah, which is why he's like...
there's beauty. And now we get to this part, and you're going, oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All right. So next, we go to our last issue in this volume, and we get to see... what happened at the pep rally, why they were running from school. And we basically get to see it starts with Brandy trying to get revenge on Zinzel for making her look bad and not bowing to her and making her look bad in the women's locker room because she stood up to her. And so she's trying to rat her out about the letters and the fact that her parents are actually dead. She hasn't been actually sending these letters, but she just has them. But ultimately, it ends with Petra, who almost killed Brandy once before, basically putting acid on Sabnum's face.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to see what he looks
like.
I
don't know what he looks like.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. In a big old fight in the school. And I love Master Lin and they're all the teachers Master Lin, he's just observe and grade them. He's just so evil. Every it's a German group. So, what did you guys think of the whole pep rally scene? Ailey, I'll let you go first.
You know, I don't know. I just like Zenzel's character. I'm just like still just don't care. Like, so I like learned it and I was like, but I was here for Petra like throwing acid, but I found myself like reading pretty quickly through these scenes because I was like, I want to get back to Mexico.
Okay, so this is what happened. Let's go. Let's get back to where we're at.
Yeah, that's kind of like how I was feeling about it. But like again, like they're like, oh, she killed her parents. She hasn't been sending the letters. I'm like, okay. I don't know. We've just have had such shocking information about all of these other characters and like these backstories that are just like so awful that like someone killing their parents, like we've seen it already. Like, I don't know. That to me doesn't feel yet, but I know like I'm going to totally eat my words. We're going to get like really hurtful backstory and I'm probably going to be like, that's crazy. But you know, as of right now,
I'm this scene right here. Clip it.
Yeah. I'm just a little invested in the other storylines at this point.
No. That's kind of how I felt. It's like I was like, okay, now they explained why they're going to Mexico. Let's get back to Mexico. Greg, what about you? What did you think?
I first off, I appreciate this show because I was really annoyed at the end of the first issue or the last issue because I thought I read it that Marcus had saw Quan like raising it and that's why he was running. I didn't realize until we're talking about this that it was he heard the shouting and he was running. And so I was just like, what do you now I appreciate the ending of this issue more because I was like, Marcus, you literally saw this dude about to hit you in the back of the head and now you're like cool with him? Like, what's up? But I love that we do this. So that's I just gotta say that. I felt the same way that Haley, JP, you guys have said. Like I appreciate what Remender does here is he leaves you on a cliffhanger and then he takes you back and you go, oh no, like I just want to know what happens in Mexico. But he doesn't spend the whole issue, which I feel like you have that happen a lot of times in TV where a big cliffhanger happens and you're like, oh man, what's gonna happen? And then it's like, oh, now you got to wait 3 weeks to see what happens, or, in comics, another issue. Yeah. So I appreciate that he just said, hey, I'm going to give you a little nugget of the past, and then I'm going to fill you in here. And there was enough that happened. I'm excited to see what happens with Shabnana. Like, I'm like, okay, he's already, nobody likes him, and, he's a nerd that nobody liked, and now he's going to be a disfigured, like what's gonna happen? I'm just like, is he gonna I almost like him, like he's gonna have the facial look of whatever the guy that was trying to hunt down Marcus in the first volume, that from the burn victim, and so I'm just intrigued by that because of you have that element of when, and I don't know what the degree of it, but the element of when you can't hide from your scars that you're seeing, right? Like that's the character of Two-Face and, in Batman, like you can't put away, and he almost doesn't want to put away because he wants to see who he is as a true person. And I'm curious to see where they go with that dynamic with Shabnana of, does he embrace a disfigurement or is he scorned by it? And so I like that because I don't need to know right now, but I'm excited to see later on in the volumes. And so there was just enough. I think the high school flashback the previous day, it lasted long enough to keep me intrigued to not go, okay, this is too much. But I was excited when we got back to Mexico.
Yeah. What about you, Gor? What did you think of the little back scene here?
I don't think any level of disfigurement can go into the abyss of Chapman. I mean, he could lose weight, he could get plastic surgery and look like Cary Grant. But his soul is just like the feces and excrement we see.
more poop.
Gor is the Rick Remender of this show.
It is, with this man. And you'll see what happens with Shatner. Right. Yeah. And for me, what I also liked about this was Zenzel. the idea if you're writing these letters, and if or not she did kill her parents, if they are dead, why do you do this? Can you think about that really? You write these letters and to someone, either you really believe that they're alive or you know that they're dead and you do this. So Zenzel, like the others, has deep family tragedy. As And even if we don't know what it is, you sense it, right?
Yeah.
And at this point is when I really began to really think about her in a whole different way. And I really became more interested in her as to if this is true. And then if you did, why? And why are you writing such nice letters too? You're not writing angry letters.
Yeah.
They're compassionate letters and how much you miss them.
Yeah.
So, because that's what I took from these, at least the first half of this comic. Yeah.
All right. So then we jump back to the present in Mexico, and we see Marcus is holding a gun on all of them, and we get Maria eventually, like, she's like doesn't trust that they're there just anonymously, which he finds out from the, and Quan does a good job of like selling. He's like, well, what? Somebody told me about this place, and Maria going, wonder who that was, Marcus. But they her basically say, trust them or don't, but be done with this. So either like kill them or let's have a good time. So they decide to, get drugged up and have a good time again. What did you guys think of the dynamic here before we get to the big finale? As we see, in addition to Hellman and Petra and Marcus and Maria, we see Quan still really in this case, the seventh wheel, and then we see why Zenzel kept inviting T along because they had a budding relationship, it appears. So what did you think of the whole dynamic here? I don't remember whose turn it is to go first. I'll let Gor go first. He just got finished. We'll let him go first, though.
I'm sorry, me?
Yeah, you.
I'm sorry. I think at this point is when Marcus and Maria think that Saya and they know her about Saya and what happened to Billy.
Yeah, they believe that they're dead. They believe
that they're dead.
Yeah.
And this is again a constant thing. And again, it goes back to that. This is not the end. This is not reality. But they think it's reality. The reader knows otherwise, but they do not know that is the case. And then also the way Quan seems to be ingratiating himself with them. And there's like these really nice scenes with Marcus, where he says, you may have had a crappy life, but here, you're with us now. And now Quan himself is a little bit, not very much torn by it, but he does have a conscience of what he's been doing, with what he has planned for him.
Yeah.
And what kind of person he is. So again, it's a continuation of what Remender is doing. And I like, again, these scenes between, the way Craig draws these scenes between Maria.
The groping.
And
the groping, yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful, really.
I love the way they stack the panels. It's like one giant panel, but yeah.
There's a lot of beautiful moments between these two, right? But like you guys mentioned earlier, Saya's in the back of your mind, where Saya says go. Like you guys said about her saying, you go, you're free, go find Maria.
Yeah.
But she loves him, right?
Yeah.
And then you're here. And so like with Greg, if there's a team, which team do you choose? So, yeah.
Haley, what did you think about this whole sequence?
Yeah,
in the hotel room or whatever.
Well, the fact that they still think Billy is alive, like I'm really waiting for that to bubble up.
At some point, Petra's gonna have to answer for that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And so, I feel like I love the whole scenes. They're all drugged up. They're all having sex. They're all having like a good time. It's just like this like moment where you're like, I feel like every time you kind of have these drug or dream sequence like aspects in the comics, you just know things are just about to, like, this left shoot's about to drop, like, and things are going to get really crazy. And so you're just kind of like holding your breath, and like, but that's where you get like some of the most like tender moments between them, of like when everyone's kind of drugged up and able to be like incredibly like just like open with each other. And they're all just, again, the moments where they feel like the most young, where they're doing drugs, they're like having their relationships, they're being kind of like messy together, and then and people are in their feelings, and then Victor and Brandy come. So I really like it. I like those moments where we get to see them that way, especially before you know all of the chaos ensues.
Yeah. Greg, what about you? What did you think of this?
I like that Quan was like the seventh wheel on this whole story for a while, because I don't like Quan, so I was like, serves you right. You know, I appreciate what he's doing with this and those moments of where you get the realness, right? Because we haven't had a Marcus. I don't think we've had anyone like drugged out or, you know, drunk kind of moment until we had it with Marcus and Billy previous, right? Like in that hotel room.
Yeah, when Marcus took all the assets.
Right. And he's like, love you, brother. Like, and then Billy dies. And it's like,
oh man.
And so I read that, you know, like Haley said, I'm kind of reading that going, okay, we're having another drugged out moment. We're getting sentimental with everybody. Like, who you gonna take out of my life now, Rick Remender? Like, who you gonna kill? Like, and you get to see Marcus's true nature here still too. I mean, he genuinely does care about people, and like you see that with his, you know, the dialogue that he has with Quan, and that moment where he's just talking about, like, you're one of us, and these are still youth, right? Like, I think we can become so jaded where you're like, as adults, where we go, you know what, man, Quan's gonna do what he needs to do because that's what he's told to do. But there's a moment where you're like, when he feels love and appreciation and acceptance, he's like, maybe this isn't the route. I don't know, you know, and we can talk about the last couple pages here.
You can go ahead. You can just start.
You know, but like, you know, like where then Marcus like, give me a Coke. And so Quan goes out to get a Coke, and you got Victor and what is it, Bridget?
Brandy.
One of those basic B names, you know. But you know, and they confront them, and then you see the rest of the crew coming up, and you're like, okay, Quan's gonna be what Quan does. But then you notice that obviously he lets them know that there's some trouble brewing, and they jump out the window, and you're like, oh, they're all running, they're about to get busted. And then the last page, the final page, you have Brandy being stabbed, and there's Marcus with a gun at Victor, and I'm like, okay, Quan had to let something be known.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, because I think there is that's where you get the beauty of and the innocence of youth, like trying to make it through life, but also trying to do what's right in their mind. And going, okay, I have people that are going to love and accept me when I haven't had that. Why am I going to betray them? Why am I going to throw them under the bus? Like, these people are doing this to me. And I think we've seen that with Quan's story in this volume so much that he's getting nonstop. Like, he does stuff for people and it's not good enough. And he hasn't done anything really for Marcus yet. And Marcus is like, man, you're one of us. Like, and so how that to me, that switch that gets flipped in a, you know, a teen, it's very believable, because I think that's what, you know, we as a society that's what we're searching for, is longing, a place of belonging. And Quan, it seems to me reading this, Quan was like, why do I care what Kenzie's, you know, whatever, his brother's name, and, you know, what Victor wants me to do, because there are people here that care about me and love me and want, or at least showing me something that I haven't been shown. So it was, I like that ending, and I'm like, all right, what's going to happen? Like, come on.
Yeah, because we get Kenji's people showing up. We get Victor showing up.
Yeah.
They're running, and then of course we get the last panel where Marcus didn't run. He hid behind, and Brandy's got a knife in her gut, and he's got a gun on Victor, which, like I said earlier before we started, took all my willpower not to open the next volume and start reading. Haley, what did you think of the finale here of what Kwan's decision? Because he's clearly affected by Marcus like reaching out to him. And
I agree so much
with shows up, of course, and so what did you think?
I mean, I think it speaks to also just like what genuine kindness can really do to a person, like that switch. Like they go to King's Dominion and they're just like faced immediately, especially the freshmen, with just like such like harshness and like hazing, and so there's really moments of like that, of kind of like authentic kindness, and Marcus is like trying to like actually do that to Kwan, and so, or give that to him. So you see that dilemma that he has, and obviously there had to have been something where he goes in and warns them, because they're already all out the window by the time Victor and Brandy get in. And I'm like, dang, everyone shows up at the same time though. And so I'm really curious to see how like it kind of unfolds. And, I like love Victor as a character though in this. Like I want Marcus to get that sweet revenge, but at the same time, I'm like, if you remove Victor, like you need to put somebody else in his place. Like I feel like story-wise, I really enjoy like the dynamic that he brings to Deadly Class. So it'd be Brandy. I was like, yeah, we could lose her. I don't want her.
I agree with you, because Victor and Shabnam represent very different types of villains.
Yes.
Or antagonists for Marcus. And so for sure. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Victor here. Gor, what did you think of the finale of this? Like Kwan's decision, like, because he gets orders and we see him leave the door unlocked, but then obviously he in some way warns them that either he lies and just says he saw Victor, or that they're coming, or what. Something. He tells them something. What did you think about the finale here?
Yeah, certainly with Kwan, there's the poor guy. He really doesn't have much character in a sense. He seems to sway back and forth, right? And here he's caught between Shabnam and Brandy and Kenji, what he owes them. But now he's got some affection from Marcus and that crowd. The next issues, I think will be a revelation to you all. And this is tough because we're being set up again. It goes back to this is not the end. And there's a lot of meaning into that now that I've gone back to the book this way with you all. And it's gonna be hard, you guys. It's gonna be good. I just gonna be.
I'm gonna like open.
Like Gorgon versus Gorge is like everything you guys just said is literally right.
No, you're all right in a sense. But the thing is, this is what makes it difficult. Again, we have such affection for these people, even the people we don't like. Right? We don't like them. More than affection, we have such interest in them, right? And this is how well. This is why, as a comic, this is so wonderful. In a film, a scene would go over, you forget the scene. But here you focus on that panel. You focus on those words. And like here, we dwell on them. We dwell on those images. We dwell on what was said. And it stays with us. I never saw the series. I have no intention of seeing the series. I've heard it's good, but I have no intention of seeing the series.
It's good.
Because the comic itself just resonates with you. And it stays with you. And the roller coaster aspect is absolute. And the undercurrents of the story, there's always an undercurrent in these stories so far. We're halfway through this. Yeah. And even when there's joy and happiness, that the quicksand is just around the corner. Yeah. And who's going to step out of it? Who will survive? And at what cost? And so this is a fascinating ending. One heck of a cliffhanger when this came out. And I said, oh, great. And I think there was a few months before the next issue.
Of course.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts before we wrap this up. We're gonna maybe make it right under the hour and a half mark. Haley, I'll let you go first. What are your final thoughts on this volume?
I mean, so good. I really liked it. You got a little bit of everything. You got more attached to the new characters. You are left on a really intense cliffhanger. You get backstory of Saya. I mean, I really, really liked this volume. You get Maria and Marcus back, which I really was waiting for. So I'm really eager to jump into the next volume, which it just made me just more excited.
All right, Greg. We talked about beforehand, before we got to the last volume was not your favorite.
It wasn't.
But what do you think about this volume? Now
it's up there. It's up there back again. It goes back to this is the Deadly class that I fell in love with, that I liked. And that's not to say I didn't, I know I dogged last volume, but obviously it had its point, and I still had a love for Deadly class. Like, I was at a con the other day, and after that issue, and I still picked up issue 1. It was a B cover.
I know, I need that cover.
Yeah, it's a nice cover. I don't have that one.
It was a heck of a deal, and now so watch out, Haley, because C2E2, my bucket list is to look for issue number 1 A cover.
I think I have it.
But
that's all you. But I want to do some Deadly class hunting.
I want it slabbed as a 9/8. I want to get it because I feel like I can. I got the last, so I'm a Deadly class.
You like it that much, Greg? That's interesting.
I am. I'm into it. I'm hunting down stuff of Deadly class now, and it's
hard.
I've waited to watch the show though, because I watched 1 episode of the show, but I didn't want anything to be spoiled, so I was like, I just gotta wait. So it was interesting to me then when you said you're not watching the show ever, so I was like, oh.
All right. Gor, final thoughts on this volume? What did you think about this portion of the story?
This is a fan favorite among readers because the letters pages to this, people like these stories a lot. The Saya story got a lot of response. And when you guys pick up the singles, if you do, the letters pages here are so heartfelt. People from all over the world, because Remender tapped into something with the readers. And it's utterly fascinating what he did here, and people just like at these issues here, just stay with them. And so, as you will see, I don't want to say anything more. So I just stay there, and I would go back and read that issue 14 of This Is Not the End, because Remender's doing something here. Something quite interesting, and again, we'll see what you guys think as this progresses.
Issue 4, dang it, Gor.
I think it's issue 14. I think that's what it is. The dynasty.
So, I will say for me, this was one of my favorite volumes so far in terms of and even though it had a little bit of highs and lows, it was a little, it's a little scattered. I would like to have just really moved the story in a way I enjoyed. Loved all the Marcus and Maria stuff. It did help build a little bit of interest in the other characters. Put me in an interesting place with Petra, who, like we said, we talked about, I enjoyed Petra, then I hated Petra. And it's so I'm really curious to see where it goes from here. I continue to love this story. I'm glad you guys are going along for the ride with me. That makes it all the more fun to know that I get to talk about it with you guys. And so with that, we're going to slide in just under an hour and a half. Thank you, Perry, for hanging out. Alfonso for hanging out. He Who Remains. Whoever's still in here. Appreciate it. And with that, we're going to get out of here. Later, everybody.
Team Saya.